Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This will be my final quarterback tier list this season. I did one earlier on this off season, and I just sort of wanted to refresh it for you guys. We're really getting into the thick of draft season, so I'm going to go through each position one more time, go over each of my tiers, and just sort of go over which guys I think are really poised for really good seasons, go over which guys I find is really good values, and just sort of give you the general rundown on any quarterback that I think is going to end up being fantasy viable this season. So if you guys have any strong disagreements, any players that maybe I left out, I think I talked about 20 quarterbacks in this list. Feel free to let me know. I'm happy to give you my opinion on anybody that didn't make it into the cut. But a lot of fun going over these videos. Really getting super excited for draft season here. We're probably about 2 weeks out from the real thick of it. I've got a lot of drafts late August, early September. It's going to be a lot of fun here, and I'm just super stoked to get going with you guys. So really excited about this. Like I said earlier, if you guys have any comments or things, let me know down below, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So yeah, with that, let's just get into tier 1 here. So starting things off with tier 1, we'll just call this the elite tier here, and I'm only going to put 2 quarterbacks in this tier. I'll start things off with Josh Allen, who's currently the quarterback 1 by ADP, going 21st overall. Comes in as my quarterback 1 as well. My main concern here is just cost. You're spending the late second round pick on Josh Allen. That's not really something that I find myself doing. I think early round 3 is even too early. I'd be much more content to take him late round 3 if you're looking at a bunch of different platforms. Obviously, that's going to move around quite a bit, but I don't find myself drafting a lot of Josh Allen just because the price tag is a little bit too high for me here. If you are in a really small league, like a 10-team or an 8-team league, I can get behind it because that positional advantage of having a Josh Allen makes a little bit more sense, but at his current ADP, I don't find myself doing it really. We didn't see anything in week 1 of preseason that really inspired me either. Keon Coleman was on the field a lot and didn't do a lot to impress me. We just don't have a clear number 1 in this offense, and even though I do still think, obviously, Josh Allen is my quarterback 1, he's someone that I'm still expecting big things from this season. If you're drafting him 21st overall, you really do need him to lap the field and be the clear-cut quarterback 1 by several points per game. That's going to be tough for him to do again this season. There's a lot of guys with a lot of upside, and taking him this high just feels like a little bit too much to pay for him. After that, we've got Jalen Hurts coming in with an ADP of quarterback 3, going 30th overall. He's my quarterback 2. I'm much happier with the ADP of Jalen Hurts here. It's still earlier than I'm comfortable taking a quarterback, so I don't find myself taking Jalen Hurts very often either. I like the values a lot more of some of these later guys we'll talk about, but if you're going to take one of the 2 quarterbacks in this tier, I do think Jalen Hurts is my preference. I don't think there's a whole lot that separates these guys, so I obviously would just prefer the one that's going a lot later. Jalen Hurts obviously has much better weapons. He's reportedly much healthier coming into this season. They've got a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, which I view to be an upgrade. They improved their backfield, getting Saquon Barkley this offseason. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about Jalen Hurts. So if you're going to take one of these tier 1 guys, Jalen Hurts would be my preference, but I don't think you're necessarily going to lose your draft because of taking another one of these guys. It's just a matter of trying to get value where we can get it, and I don't think that neither one of these guys really presents a huge value to me. So I'm generally passing on tier 1 here unless someone ends up slipping, but again, they're obviously elite players. They're going to be fantastic all season, and it's just a matter of how much you got to pay for them. Next up, we're moving into tier 2 here, and I'll just call these guys the guys that I'm pretty confident have a really good shot to finish inside the top 5. Note there are 4 players here, so I've listed 6 quarterbacks already. Not all these guys are going to finish inside the top 5, but we'll start things off with CJ Stroud, currently being drafted as the quarterback 5, going 50th overall. Comes in as my quarterback 4. He's currently being drafted in the early 5th round. I think that's about right. It's obviously in the high end. You are banking on CJ Stroud taking that year 2 leap and being a lot more productive than he was last season. Obviously, he was fantastic last year, but still only finished the quarterback 10. Only threw 23 passing touchdowns, so you need that number to jump up the season. I think that could happen, so I am excited about CJ Stroud, but I don't want people to get carried away and start drafting him ahead of guys like Lamar Jackson. I don't think he belongs in tier 1. Even myself, I was super stoked about CJ Stroud earlier on in the year, and I've had to dial it back a little bit just because we do need him to be extremely efficient. He's not going to add a ton on the ground, so we need him to be a 4,500 yard, 40 plus touchdown guy, and that can happen, but it's just tough to predict that. So I like CJ Stroud a lot. I don't mind drafting him, but I'm not reaching on him, and I need to get him around at cost right now. Next, we've got Lamar Jackson, currently being drafted as the quarterback 4, going 41st overall. Comes in as my quarterback 3. I don't mind the ADP of Lamar Jackson at all. I'm super happy to draft him where he is. Getting him in the mid to late 4th round, I think, is a really great value. So he's someone I don't mind drafting all of the players in this list, he's the guy. Him and Stroud are the two that I find myself with the most of. So they're decent options. Again, this isn't necessarily the tier that I'm targeting, but obviously we know Lamar has quarterback 1 overall upside. We just need him to perform the same way he did last year. He was obviously fantastic over the back half of last season. Did have a couple game stretch where wasn't all that fantastic, and he is going to be a little bit boomer bust. That's just the nature of having Lamar on your roster, but nobody really offers the same ceiling that Lamar does. So I don't mind the ADP here. It's just a roster construction thing. Got to be okay with spending a 4th-round pick there. Patrick Mahomes makes this tier as well, though he's got the quarterback 2 ADP, being drafted 37th overall. Comes in as my quarterback 6, so I'm much lower than consensus on Patrick Mahomes. The main issue here is just the receiving weapons are not good. We saw Marquise Brown go down this week with the preseason game. May or may not be ready for week 1. Xavier Worthy, I'm unimpressed with as a prospect. Rashee Rice, more and more looks like he's not going to be suspended this season, so he could end up being a value in helping out this receiving core. But Travis Kelce's obviously getting a year older. This defense in Kansas City is still elite. Pacheco's still a really fantastic option for them on the ground. This isn't a team that needs to throw the ball 40 times a game to win games. They don't need to put up 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns out of Mahomes again. He'll be good. He's going to be a mid-tier quarterback 1 for me, and he's obviously got quarterback 1 overall upside. We've seen him do it before, but it's just not a price tag I'm willing to pay right now where he's being drafted. And the last quarterback on this tier is going to be Anthony Richardson. This one is all about upside, really. He's obviously going as the quarterback 6 overall, being drafted 52nd. So a mid-5th round pick. He comes in as my quarterback 5. I don't mind drafting Anthony Richardson at all. I certainly want to leave my draft with a secondary quarterback if I take him, so I like to pair him with someone like Jared Goff just to sort of stabilize my roster because there's a ton of risk associated with this. We don't even really know how good Anthony Richardson is. He didn't look great in his first preseason game, although I'm not too worried about that at all. He's going to be a fantasy monster in all likelihood when he's healthy. Just the issue is going to be health, but he's probably going to run the ball 5 to 10 times every single week. He's got a shot at double-digit rushing touchdowns. This should be an up-tempo offense. So I am really excited about what Anthony Richardson can do this season. Just need to understand that it's a really risky pick, so you've got to be comfortable really hedging your bets a little bit and maybe trying to grab a second quarterback later if you do take him. Moving on to tier 3 here, we're going to call these guys that I view as quality starters. So really, if you don't get anybody inside the top 3 tiers, that's when I start to be really worried about what your quarterback position is going to look like over the course of the season. But if you get out of your draft with any one of these top 3 tier guys, I think you're going to be pretty solid going into week 1. So start things off with Jordan Love, who comes in as my quarterback 7, despite an ADP of quarterback 9, going 75th overall. I think Jordan Love is probably going to be my most rostered quarterback this season. He's a guy that I do truly believe is an elite quarterback in the NFL. He's got an elite offensive mind around him. Matt LaFleur is obviously a fantastic offensive head coach. The weapons all around him are fantastic as well. You've got Watson, Reed, Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks looks like he's a budding star. Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, it's a good tight end room. You've got Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. A.J. Dillon's capable as well. There's a lot of reasons to be super excited about this offense. I think Jordan Love is a guy that's got top 3 upside at the quarterback position. He's someone that I'm super stoked about and someone that I do find myself leaving a ton of drafts with. Probably my second most rostered quarterback this season is going to be Kyler Murray. Also makes this list in tier 3. Currently being drafted with the quarterback 10, going 72nd overall. He comes in as my quarterback 8. Again, another guy with a ton of upside. He's probably got the best receiving core he's had in his entire career so far with Marvin Harrison, Zay Jones, and Michael Wilson to go with Trey McBride. James Conner's still there. He's going to be a force. And this defense in Arizona is going to be absolutely awful. This is going to be an Arizona team that needs to put up a ton of points, and they're going to find themselves in a lot of shootouts. So I'm excited about Kyler Murray as well as Jordan Love. I expect to find myself with a ton of those guys this offseason. Dak Prescott makes this list as well. Is going as the quarterback 8, going 74th overall. Comes in as my quarterback 9. Another guy that I do find myself drafting a decent amount of. I am a little bit concerned about what's going to happen with CeeDee Lamb here. I'd be shocked to see CeeDee Lamb miss time this season, but obviously it's a reason to be a little bit uncertain. There's always a couple players going into the NFL season they're holding out. We don't know what's going to happen with their contract situation. Look at Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor last season. You saw Jonathan Taylor miss the first several weeks of the season. You saw Josh Jacobs come in and just not be good. So there are concerns here because I do think CeeDee Lamb is extremely important to this offense, but if he's there, I'm still assuming that's going to happen. Dak Prescott's a guy we saw be the quarterback 1 over the back half of last season. We know he's got that upside. There's going to be no running game in Dallas. The defense is risky. They're going to give up a lot of points. Dak Prescott should be a really solid quarterback for us again this season. Joe Burrow also makes this list, coming in as the quarterback quarterback 7 by ADP, going 63rd overall. He currently comes in as my quarterback 10. I don't find myself drafting a ton of him because I prefer the guys like Jordan Love, Kyler, and Dak, and he's actually going ahead of them. But I think he's perfectly fine. He's a guy that I'll feel really comfortable going into week 1 with as my starter. There are a little bit of injury concerns as well, but we've seen Joe Burrow be an absolute monster for fantasy. He is an elite quarterback. He's got elite weapons. I'm going to feel really comfortable with him going into week 1 as my quarterback. And then in addition to tier 3, previously I'd really generally thought that there were just going to be 10 quarterbacks I'd be comfortable with. I am adding Jayden Daniels to this list, currently going as quarterback 14 overall, 108th overall, so like a late 9th round pick. Comes in as my quarterback 11. He's someone that I really do think impressed me in week 1. He looked like he can throw the ball downfield really effectively. We saw him perform really well in college as well. He won the Heisman for a reason. He's an elite athlete. He's got a shot to add 600 to 800 yards on the ground this season. If this offense can take a step forward, which I do sort of expect, they've got a new offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury, who's at least okay in terms of play calling. They've got good weapons around him. Ben Sinnott looked awesome this week. You've got good backs. You've got Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. There are players in this offense to make you excited, and if Jayden Daniels is going to offer that same kind of rushing upside, we could see a scenario where he's sort of like what Justin Fields was in years past, but maybe a little bit better passer. He's a guy that can certainly provide a high-end fantasy value just on the ground, and he's someone that I would feel relatively comfortable with as my starter. I'd probably want to hedge my bets with him and add a secondary quarterback like Jared Goff, like Tua, someone who's going to give me some points if Jayden Daniels doesn't pan out, but the upside's insane there. I definitely don't mind leaving my draft with Daniels as my de facto quarterback 1 this season. Next, we've got tier 4, and I'm going to call these guys streamers. Jared Goff is going to be the highlight of this list here. He's someone that I'm actually really excited about this season. Comes in as the quarterback 12 by ADP, my quarterback 13. And there's just a lot of reasons to be really excited about him. He maybe can't finish as the quarterback 1 overall, but he's a guy that's going to be a part of a really high-end offense. They're playing 14 of 17 games this season inside, which is massive for Jared Goff, who has a 5-point-per-game split, positive in the direction when he plays inside. He's a guy that's a lot more effective indoors. They've got a lot of high-powered players around him, and the schedule to open the season is absolutely fantastic as well. So he's a guy you could start week 1 through 4 and just see what happens and be probably pretty happy. So Jared Goff absolutely belongs on this list. Tua also belongs on this list, going as the quarterback 13. Comes in as my quarterback 14. He's a guy that's surrounded with superstars and Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. There are a ton of weapons on this offense, and it's going to be really easy for Tua to put up monster numbers. Obviously, he's not going to offer a ton on the ground, so you need a really high-end fantasy performance, but he's a guy who could certainly lead the league in passing. He did last season. He could also put up a much better touchdown number than he did last season. They just ran in a ton of touchdowns last year, but if that flips, if you see Tua put up 35 passing touchdowns this season, tack on 4,500 yards. This is a guy that has top 5 quarterback upside, and he's being drafted outside of the top 12. So I certainly like grabbing Tua as a quarterback 2, especially if I take him after someone like Anthony Richardson or Jayden Daniels. Kirk Cousins also makes this list. Going as the quarterback 18 overall right now, 128th off the board. He comes in as my quarterback 22. That's probably too low, but he is someone that I view as a really viable streamer this season, someone who's going to be a guy that we'll want to play matchups with, but he was obviously fantastic before he got hurt last season. He's got plenty of weapons and a good coaching staff around him. I'm pretty excited to see what Cousins can do in Atlanta this year. Stafford also belongs on this list. Going as the quarterback 20 is just really late for a guy that I think we can start. Given the matchup, obviously, but you've obviously got Kupp and Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams out of the backfield, Colby Parkinson, someone I'm a little bit excited about the tight end position. On top of that, you've got Demarcus Robinson, you've got Jordan Whittington. There's a lot of pieces in this offense. And then Sean McVay is obviously just an elite offensive coordinator, or head coach, obviously. A really good schedule to start the season as well. They open week 1 against the Lions. You could do a lot worse than starting Stafford in week 1. Trevor Lawrence comes in as the quarterback 17, currently going as the 122nd player off the board, is my quarterback 16 right now. He's just the guy that's surrounded with good weapons. There's no true superstar in this offense, but between Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, Gabe Davis, there are a lot of players to help Trevor Lawrence out here, and I do still believe in Doug Peterson. If Trevor Lawrence can just get a little bit lucky in the touchdown department, he could certainly be a guy that has a good year, and he's a guy that, depending on the matchup, I do think has a shot to be useful this year. And then the last guy on this list is going to be Deshaun Watson, currently being drafted as the quarterback 22, going 157th overall. Comes in as my quarterback 17 right now, so I'm a little bit higher than consensus on him. Totally get it if you just want to be out on him just because of, obviously, off-the-field issues. I have no problem completely removing Watson from your draft boards if you want to do that. But he is a guy that's going to offer some upside on the ground. He's a guy that We do have plenty of weapons surrounding him between Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku. There are a lot of decent weapons on this offense, and it should be a pass-heavy spread offense that could result in a pretty spiked production season for Watson. So he could surprise people this season, and he's someone that I do think needs to be on fantasy radars, is at least a guy we'll be looking to stream with this season. And then tier 5 here, the last 4 quarterbacks I'll talk about are just 4 quarterbacks that I think have upside to really surprise us this season and end up finding their way towards being super fantasy relevant. So I'll start things off with Caleb Williams, currently being drafted as the quarterback 15. I am below consensus on him as my quarterback 19, but I can't deny the upside here. He's got elite weapons around him in DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, a good tight end room in Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. DeAndre Swift is a really capable pass catcher out of the backfield, and we saw him in week 1 of the preseason show exactly why he was the first quarterback off the board. He's obviously got a cannon of an arm. He's a guy that's going to scramble relatively effectively and offer a decent rushing floor. So there's a world where Caleb Williams puts up a CJ Stroud-esque season in 2024 and ends up being really fantasy relevant, especially in the back half of the season as he finds his legs here. Geno Smith also belongs on this list, currently being drafted as the quarterback 26. So he's free in drafts. He's not going to go drafted in a lot of leagues, but comes in as my quarterback 18. There are a lot of really great weapons on this offense in DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, Noah Fant, a capable tight end. And now we've got a new college system offense that's obviously going to be potentially a lot more up-tempo. They had over 70 plays from scrimmage in week 1 of the preseason. They were last in the NFL in plays from scrimmage last year. I'm not saying preseason necessarily dictates what's going to happen here, but we do expect them to be a lot more up-tempo this season, and that could mean that there's just a lot more opportunity here for Geno to put points. And with these weapons, I think there's a chance for him to finish as a surprising top 12 quarterback. We saw him do that just 2 seasons ago, so it's certainly in the cards for Geno. Justin Herbert, currently being drafted as the quarterback 16, comes in as my quarterback 15. Just has to be on this list because of how talented he is. He could certainly put up a really highly efficient season and surprise us. I know it's going to be a run-heavy offense. I don't expect Herbert to be a top 10 quarterback this year, but the talent's there. If you have guys like Ladd McConkey and Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnson step up, there's certainly the potential here for Justin Herbert to surprise us this year. And then Will Levis obviously belongs on this list for me. He's someone that I'm actually getting really, really excited about so far. Currently being drafted as a quarterback 23, comes in as my quarterback 20, but the weapons in Tennessee are honestly really good. Calvin Ridley's a solid, capable wide receiver 1 for an offense. You've got Tyler Boyd, Treylon Burks. You've got DeAndre Hopkins when he returns from injury. Chika Okonkwo, 2 really capable pass catchers. Tony Pollard looked great in week 1. He looked a little bit more explosive than I remember him being last season. And this is also going to be a really pass-heavy offense, and Will Levis is going to offer a decent rushing floor. He's a guy that's relatively mobile. He's pretty athletic, and he's going to give you more on the ground than you might expect. So I think Will Levis is a chance here to potentially be a guy that reminds us a lot like what Jameis Winston did years back, where he was just on a bad team with a bad defense, really airing it out, taking a lot of chances, getting behind in games, then putting up big second half numbers. And I think Will Levis could certainly be a guy that puts up a really high-end fantasy season, despite maybe not even being really that good from a real-life standpoint. So I'm excited to see what Will Levis can do this season. I think he's going to be a lot of fun, and watching the Titans might finally be fun this year. It hasn't been fun to watch them for a couple of years. So that'll do it for the quarterback tier list. Up next, I'll be going through my running back tier list. There's going to be a lot more names on that list. And of course, we'll do the wide receivers and tight ends later or after that. So there's going to be a couple tier lists coming out this week. So stay tuned for those. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of them, just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It's going to be all free. There's a ton of content coming out. It's going to hear all off season long, all draft season long, and all regular season long, just to help you dominate your leagues this season. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys have any comments on what I said here, any specific players I left out that you want opinions on, feel free to let me know in the comments. I love interacting with you guys there. If you guys made it this far in the video, please also give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm, just helps me know that I'm doing a good job and all that. And yeah, I'm super excited. It's August 12th right now. We've got a lot coming forward. We're just through week 1 of the preseason. We've got 2 more weeks of that, and then we're going to be really into the thick of real football. So super excited. Can't wait. Really starting to feel like football's right around the corner. So appreciate you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun, and just can't wait. So thanks. Catch you next time. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter @RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.